You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. The current view there is from a coastal region in the province of Oaxaca in Mexico. In fact, very much in the path of Tropical Storm Agatha, which has been named early this morning and already has winds estimated at 60 miles per hour and a pressure of 998 millibars. We expect the National Hurricane Center will corroborate this when they next update in an hour's time with a new forecast track and all the information that we need. This storm is on course to strike Mexico, the southern part, the Pacific coast, of course. It's the first storm of the Pacific hurricane season. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and I'm joined by my team. We have just two of us right now. We've got Joey and we have Xavier. Hello to both of you, and nice to have you on board.
Good to be here.
Indeed. Let's, in fact, I'd also like to show you something that I've just thrown up today. Our lovely satellite wall. And you can see all of those little glimpses of the storm right now and how it's been progressing over the last 12 hours or so, all from STAR, the imagery source from NOAA, new home of the NOAA floaters, if you've been wondering. Has been the case for a few years now. And you can see on those various different angles just exactly what Agatha is up to. But let's put it into someone else's words right now. Xavier, why don't you tell us what your thoughts are on the storm right now?
As you said, it's been pretty much quickly intensifying. Yes, the National Hurricane Center had 50 miles an hour, but that was part of the intermediate advisory, which ATCF earlier overrode and put it to 60 miles an hour in the pressure 998 that we're running with right now here. And it's definitely going to be a little bit of a different start than we've typically been used to for Eastern Pacific seasons. We typically kick off an Eastern Pacific season with either a depression or a weak storm, or something that just ends up either paralleling the coast of Mexico or going away from the coast of Mexico. Obviously, the start of this season is different. We're looking at the first storm of the season later than we've seen in previous years because, of course, 2020 and 2021, we kind of set some records for how early we were seeing stuff. And then this year, 13 days after the start of the season was when we finally got our first name used. And the Category 2 landfall that we're looking at right now, 100 miles an hour, is what the National Hurricane Center peaks it as before putting it inland around 90 miles an hour. So between high in Cat 1, low in Cat 2, at that point, intensity doesn't really matter because it's only a 5-knot difference. But either way, Oaxaca definitely needs to be Oaxaca. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Either way, the state of that needs to be making sure that they're rushing things to completion. Rainfall looks to be one of the significant threats with it. Up to 20 inches is what is looking to be possible out of this. I'm trying to read the public advice right now so I can see specifically where. What they have said is that storm surge could produce coastal flooding near the east of where the center passes. Oaxaca 10 to 16 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 20 inches possible, with flash flooding and mudslides occurring possibly. Chiapas, we're looking at 5 to 10 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 15 inches. Guerrero, 2 to 6 inches. Veracruz and Tabasco, that's 2 to 4 inches as well. And then, of course, for the remainder of the Mexico coast, you're looking at possible recurrence and swell. So pretty much the near thing you would expect from any other hurricane. But everywhere else doesn't seem to be getting too much for impacts unless, of course, you're crossing into the Bay of Campeche. That's another story. But we're focusing right now on, obviously, what's going on right now, which is the quickly intensifying Agatha.
Well, you can hear the audio in the background on the camera there, and Yesterday, when we were on the air, it was actually quite windy. It seems less so today, and it sounds like a lot of people are enjoying themselves there. I would urge caution because that location is under the hurricane watch, so that seems a little bit worrying. And looks like it's clouding over just now there as well. If you've got any comments or questions for us on our stream tonight, we intend to run for 2 hours, which is more than we did yesterday because I think things are getting a little bit more serious at this point, and we do expect, certainly from the National Hurricane Center, that it will become a hurricane and possibly a significant one. What are they forecasting?
As I mentioned earlier, it was 100 miles an hour, but the course that was before the override, because they still have it from the 11 a.m. advisory from when it was, I think, 45 still. So there might be a trend upwards. I wouldn't be surprised if they nudged the peak up to 105, maybe 110, but I think 105 is the most realistic route for them to go right now.
Just loading these graphics up right now. Well, that's the only one I've got at the moment, which is the wind field when we expect those tropical storm force winds to arrive. And I believe just joining us now is Ethan as well, who's been working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes and now with us on the air. But before we go to him and Joey, just the key messages as well on the screen now. Increasing risk of tropical storm force and hurricane force winds along portions of the southern coast of Mexico Sunday night and Monday. Hurricane watch remains in effect. Heavy rains will develop over portions of southern Mexico by Sunday and continue through Tuesday, which will pose a threat of potentially life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides. We're still on possibly for 400 to 500 millimeters of rain from this storm, distributed over quite a large area as well, which puts us at a heightened state of readiness, I guess you could call it. Joey, your comments right now on Agatha.
Yeah, definitely looking to be a significant situation for those on the coastline, especially those under the hurricane watch. As Avia said just a bit ago, preparations need to be getting close to completion at this point, making sure that you are aware of the threats that you are being faced with. Agatha, definitely rainfall being the key factor. I believe currently we're at a CDPS stage 5 on our damage scale, and that is mainly rain driven. Um, as the National Hurricane Center key messages state, dangerous, life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides caused due to that heavy rainfall. So definitely something that everyone in the area needs to be looking out for.
As always, we're happy and ready to take questions on the air live. A few that have come in already. What do you think about the recent northern trend? I noticed that the National Hurricane Center earlier guys in their cone sort of acknowledged it's going a bit further north than forecasted. Any significance?
What I know, it's just been a little bit of an issue trying to figure out what's going on with Agatha, thanks to the fact it's kind of been wobbly, quite wobbly, and that might be messing with it a bit. It's already had an uncertain future for quite a bit of its invest life, for sure. Some models were trying to keep it parallel on the coast, some had it, turning around, and then some, of course, doing what the current forecast is right now and making landfall in Mexico. It's kind of a hard picture to read. Maybe we'll get some more clarity once the National Hurricane Center issues their advisory in the next 51 minutes at most. But it's definitely interesting what's been going on with its movement and the forecast expected for it so far.
Let's say hello to Ethan, and you're showing us the latest Force 13 sort of situation report there, and a cone also.
Yeah, this is our latest forecast cone that we published, if my timer serves me right, about 3 hours ago, I believe. Yeah, 3 hours ago. And of course, we did follow the National Hurricane Center's 45 miles per hour, 1,002 millibar estimate at that time. Of course, now it's at 60. So strengthening a little bit quicker than what I was forecasting. I actually followed the National Hurricane Center forecast directly, actually. So This doesn't mean that we could be looking at a stronger storm. There is still potential that this could be even weaker than what the NHC is forecasting, as the storm looks to be dealing with a little bit of dry air right now. But overall, you can see how tightly packed that cone is. Really, it's just a matter of those little shifts east or west now of where this thing is going to make landfall here. But in general, probably looking at a Category 2 peak from this. But a good thing is all of the models are really starting to hone in on this very slight weakening phase as this comes into land. And if I had to guess,
Right.
it's probably going to make landfall at this time. My personal forecast, of course, is calling for a high-end Category 1 landfall.
We were talking about that quite a bit in the last in yesterday's stream. How the GFS had been consistently calling for significant weakening before landfall. So you're saying other models are starting to agree?
Not so much that other models are in agreement. It's just that I'm personally in agreement because there's just becoming a lot more things clearer, and plus the euro is also showing this weakening into land now. So yeah, multiple models are now coming into agreement.
Right.
There's just other factors that also support that decision, such as this thing is still stalling, and there looks to be perhaps some dry air intrusion into this.
I'm not seeing it looking at this water vapor here, Ethan. So I'm not sure. Maybe if you have your own that you could show us, might show a different story. Some questions here. Can Agatha maintain its tropical cyclone status and cross to the Gulf of Mexico, maintaining the name Agatha?
It certainly could, but it is extremely unlikely.
It's going to be very difficult. It's kind of like one of the situations we saw with 2020. It definitely reminds me of what we saw with 2020 because basically what's going to happen once Agatha does dissipate over Mexico, it's going to get embedded into one of those Central American gyres there, and we know exactly what happened with 2020. You know, Amanda made landfall as a tropical storm and then became Cristobal in the Atlantic. Our analysis, of course, had it as one full storm. But you got to remember, we're talking about Mexico terrain here. That is usually known to just flat out destroy storm centers. So it's looking pretty likely that we'll see the rapid weakening, but it all depends on how quickly Agatha gets over and how much weakening it is dealing with because of the terrain there.
Here's one for you guys then. If you remember back in 2020 when we had Amanda, we were looking at model runs, GFS particularly, and it was showing that it was spitting out storms, or at least one storm, from that gyric remnant to its east in the Western Caribbean. And I look now and it's doing something pretty similar with this developing storm over Cuba and into the Atlantic. So are there parallels in that regard, and does that tell you anything at all?
I do know that the models have been consistent, or the GFS at least has been consistent on that, but the GFS has also been consistent on a lot of things wrong this season. I mean, especially with that whole thing that they tried to develop for a whole entire week and a half. Went in the Gulf of Mexico, and I think that was the same thing that eventually became 90L, but we know what became of that. So I really wouldn't put too much onto that until other models actually start picking it up, which I have noticed. There actually is other model support, which does make this slightly different. I know the Canadian also develops it to an extent, and I know that some ensembles develop it, but like I said, it's a bit too early to tell. It kind of relies on what ends up happening with Agatha on whether it spins up something east of it.
And if it's this that reforms or keeps its status or whatever in the Gulf of Mexico, as far as I can tell, if we're comparing it back to Cristobal, this would move further northeast than Cristobal did.
Yeah, Miles pretty much said that if it does reform in the Atlantic, it's not going to be a Cristobal situation because it's literally going to go back in the Yucatan or something like that. So it really wouldn't be a long-lived storm or anything like that.
Ethan, would you concur with that?
Yeah, it's going to be a very sloppy mess if this does do something in the Atlantic. But what I can say is it looks like that Florida could receive some impacts.
back to our satellite wall right now, and you can see all of those images there. As we take one or two more questions, why is Adam says, why is lightning rare in hurricanes? It isn't. You can see there the top right hand corner image there. That's the lightning detector, the GLM lightning on GOES 16, I think. And you can see all of those little areas there. That's all lightning popping out. Admittedly, not much of it in the center, but there's quite a lot of it there. Any comment you guys would like to make regarding lightning?
Yeah, lightning, normally when we see it in tropical cyclones, it's a sign that the system is intensifying. And it isn't rare to see lightning within tropical cyclones, especially as during cyclones that make landfall while intensifying. But yeah.
I think we'll be able to show the lightning on our other graphic as well. Just a moment. So here we are, looking again. Lovely visible imagery, by the way, and you might just be able to make out all of those lightning strikes. Quite hard to tell, but a lot of it is on its tail, the southwest of the storm's center. And you look at its appearance right now, I can certainly see where Ethan's coming from regarding dry air. So why don't we explore that a little bit more and take a look at some other... Before we were looking at the upper water vapor. This is mid-level, and down to lower level might suggest that something just a little bit more on the lower levels, but I'm still really not seeing much dry air, Ethan. So I don't know what it is if it's not that, because it does look quite convincing.
It's something quite peculiar.
Certainly. Right, just another comment there. You know that the Atlantic could probably make its first storm subtropical on May 31st before June near the Azores, says Storm Tracking. I'm not aware of anything near the Azores.
So I'm going to say that and simplify this in one word and one word only. No.
I can see what they're looking at, but
That's definitely a no.
No.
You're clutching at straws there, I think.
Yep.
It does look interesting on the satellite imagery projections, but nah. It's the Central American area you've got to look at. And what do we think? Alright, we had this question earlier. What do we think about the northern trend? We sort of mentioned that earlier. And we're waiting for the National Hurricane Center's latest update. I mean, regarding whether it would change the forecast, I don't think it would really, just that it would all happen sooner if it moves north of forecast, won't it? And what are the chances of a major hurricane hit on Mexico is a question there by Jan. Well, guys, what do you think now? Ethan, you were really going towards Category 2 yesterday. I'm guessing it's staying the same.
Yeah, in general, around low-end Category 2. Still not the off chance that this could get stronger. But with this northward trend, this also puts it very closer to shore. I know that a lot of people have been rumoring that there might have been a center relocation. I wouldn't say that at all. I would just say that it's taken that northward turn about 6 to 12 hours sooner than what we were forecasting, which is, of course, going to bring it a lot closer to land. And you can see that on the latest NHC cone. So still, we're probably looking at a low-end Category 2 peak. Could be a little bit weaker, given that it has less time over water, maybe. But in general, that's what I'm thinking in terms of peak intensity.
Let's get that cone up now for the first time because I've not been able to show it so far. And here it is. This was the last intermediate advisory, the 1 p.m. Central Time advisory from the National Hurricane Center. And as you can see, it's got a little bit of an odd angle, very unnatural curve there at the beginning. That's because the storm has pretty much ended up moving north and east of where it was supposed to go. and it's now hanging around the eastern periphery of the cone, and is basically on the same latitude as where the National Hurricane Center thought the storm would be at around midnight tonight, local time. So there is an argument there that they might put the whole thing 12 hours ahead of schedule, and that would mean a hurricane landfall in the morning on Monday rather than in the evening. So obviously changes things quite a lot, and you see all of those holiday makers and leisure seekers over there in on the webcam in Mexico, but they things might get cut short much sooner than they're currently thinking with that hurricane watch already in effect.
Yeah, I wouldn't even discount those could be upgraded to hurricane warning to the next advisory.
It's possible. That's something to really consider, and if it does, then everyone's going to go crazy, I think. We'll find out soon enough. National Hurricane Center will be updating within the next 40 minutes here on Force 13 Live, and we'll have that update whenever it comes in. Loads more questions. Do you think Agatha will roll into the Atlantic? Nice verbiage there. It may well roll into the Atlantic, but we're not fully sure yet whether it will be called Agatha or whether it will be something else or whether it will have anything left of it by the time it gets there. It really is one of those things where you got to wait and see. Let's go back to our full pictures here and the camera once again on the left hand side. How favourable is the Bay of Campeche looking if Agatha's remnants continue into there?
I mean, I said it earlier, the thing it's not going to have, even if it were to make it into the Bay of Campeche, is time, because unlike what we've seen from, Cristobal, which is what everyone's pretty much looking at when comparing like what we're seeing with Agatha, this is going to go back into Mexico. So one, it's going to have land interaction against it. I know wind shear's been moderately high, moderate to high, so that's going to be another factor that goes against it. So even if it does get out into it longer than expected, it's really not going to become anything formidable between consistently paralleling land and eventually making landfall somewhere along Mexico, whether it's the Yucatan, whether it's back the same direction it came. There's too many uncertainties, especially when we're talking about this being 5 to 7 days out, and the fact that Central American gyres are not exactly easy to predict. So it's, as Nathan said, another thing where you just got to be patient. It's only a 20% chance of forming by the National Hurricane Center to begin with. So even then, there's still an 80% chance that it doesn't exactly come to fruition at all. So,
but is there a 20% chance of a system forming independently of Agatha, or is that a 20% chance that Agatha will regenerate or survive?
I think it's kind of both. It's just say that broad area low pressure is expected to form, which means that they have it dissipating. Well, basically, what the National Hurricane Center is saying, that they think that the center of Agatha is going to dissipate, and then a new one's going to pretty much come off of that or something like that.
So that's the current working forecast. Okay. Is the area of Mexico receiving impact heavily populated or vulnerable, says Lucas Marble? Well, there's currently, I think it's about, it's still over 10 million who have a significant chance of seeing 200 millimeters of rain. All of those areas could be very vulnerable, considering that these are the areas that you see lots of landslides and flooding, especially at this time of year. So there's certainly an amount of concern. I believe the area, I've forgotten what the numbers were now. I think the area in 10% chance of hurricane conditions is about 450,000 people now, assuming that the track follows its expectations. So those numbers are creeping up as those percentages start rising. But a lot of mountains and even volcanoes in the area. I know that some people were talking about, were voicing concern about, of course, volcanic activity when there's a huge amount of rain deposited, then that starts up volcanic mudslides and things can get really hairy. So, all of these people need to watch out for. A question there: what do you think about the chances of this becoming a Category 3? Odds against just now.
Yep, I'd agree. I think there is a slight chance, but in my opinion, it's very unlikely that that will happen. I think it will be high in Cat 1, possibly getting towards Cat 2.
Just seeing if there's more questions just now. If it does reform in the Gulf of Mexico, how strong would it be and where would it make landfall? Wow, we need to get our crystal balls out.
Yeah.
Don't know if anyone wants to have a proper take at that question.
I've pretty much been answering all the stuff related to it crossing over, so I guess I can do it again. Basically, landfall, yeah, that's completely uncertain. We're pretty much talking anywhere between, if you have the NHC outlook up, pretty much anywhere from the western end of that AOI, which would be pretty much, hold on, let me map of Mexico here. On my screen here at least. So pretty much we're talking anywhere, in the state of Veracruz, down through the entire Yucatan, western side of the Yucatan. That's the possible landfall zone. So pretty much the entire region surrounding the Bay of Campeche could see a landfall, but it's also if it forms. I mean, we're looking at the potential for a new low forming, or somehow it survives. It all depends on what happens. It's not going to be strong. Probably 45 to 50 would be the reasonable maximum that it would achieve because of the land interaction and hostile conditions in general. It's not going to be anything that's different from your usual Central American gyre mess for June. Early June, at least.
There was another question. What are the chances that it can form into Anna before June the 1st? What? It's not even Anna this year.
I think an interesting question, though, Nathan.
The first name on the Atlantic name list is Alex, just for your information. But I swear if we get that before June the 1st, then a lot of people in our server will collectively scream. Which you can join, by the way, if you would like to chat to other Storm Trackers live on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13, to join a discussion, even when we're not on the air. More questions here. When is the last time we have seen a tropical system impact Oaxaca this early in the season? I'm pretty sure it's quite common.
I did my... It's actually not, actually.
It's not?
It's not.
So the last quote-unquote impacts that this area felt was actually back in 2016 from, I think it was Tropical Depression 1E that they had. But if you really want to go to a tropical storm impact, you actually have to go back to 2014. That was when Boris stalled off the coast. But if you actually want to go for a landfall in the area, not exactly in this Providence, but near it, to this day, actually, back in 2013, Barba formed, and that made landfall as a 80-mile-per-hour hurricane in this region. I can actually circle it here on my screen, Nathan. Barba made landfall right around here, so pretty close for impact regions. Not every time that you see a hurricane making landfall in this region early on in the season. Normally for early season landfalls, we actually want to look in areas east of here, or either an out to sea track. So not every day that we see a storm make this kind of track early on in the season. Certainly not uncommon, but pretty infrequent, I would say.
Early on in this storm's life, or in the invest stage, really, I was sort of comparing it to Barbara quite a bit because it was sort of headed that way. Of course, I tracked that one as well back in 2013, Category 1 landfall. Didn't it do something on the other side as well, that one? I can't remember.
I believe it did. Let me just check real quick.
What did it do?
Yes, I believe it became Andrea in the Atlantic.
So usually when this happens, you sort of get to see something on the other side.
Yeah, this is pretty similar situation to this, actually.
Yeah, interesting.
What we're seeing on the model is from Barbara and Andrea from 2013. That's very, very interesting.
Andrea ended up. Did it go to Florida?
Florida Panhandle, yes, as
Right.
a 65-mile-per-hour mess. Like it was
Yeah,
horrible.
it certainly
And then,
was. Yeah, I
and then
remember
it rode up
that.
the Dominican coast as a post-tropical cyclone.
Still not as bad as Colin. Anyway, moving on. What is the storm surge potential on Mexico? That's a good question. I don't know
That
if
I
they
can
I haven't
actually,
checked that.
have they
I can
speculated
actually
on that.
pull up. I can actually pull up the latest National Hurricane Center advisory. They say storm surge could produce coastal flooding near to east of where the center passes. Oh my gosh, I'm getting my words wrong here. Storm surge could produce coastal flooding near and to the east of where the center passes the coast in areas of onshore winds. The surge may be accompanied by large and destructive waves. I don't see their exact storm surge forecast.
Right. They might give numbers in the
Um,
next
oh,
advisory then.
Yeah.
yeah. I can see that they have a lot of rainfall forecasts, but not so much on storm surge. That's unfortunate.
What else do we have at this point?
Well, if you don't mind, Nathan,
Oh
I think
yes.
I'd actually like to show the um the latest GFS prediction for rainfall, if you don't mind.
Okay. I was going to do that on my screen eventually, but go right ahead.
So yep, we'll go out just periods here. We'll go out. This is 5 days out in terms of a rainfall forecast. Oh my goodness, that's a
I've
lot of
got to
rainfall.
interrupt because the update is out. A hurricane warning has been issued from Salina Cruz to Laguna de Chacahua. I'm not Spanish. A tropical storm warning and hurricane watch from Salina Cruz to Barra de Tonala, and a tropical storm warning from Barra de Tonala to Boca de Pijijiapan, and from Laguna de Chacahua to Punta Maldonado. So,
It goes up to 105
hurricane
miles per hour.
warnings and tropical storm warnings in effect, 60 miles per hour, pressure 998. They're expecting 105 mile per hour peak. That's the latest.
Called it.
Personally, I think 105 is a little bit too high. But I think this forecast is going to be very interesting to see what they do to this forecast cone.
They're expecting landfall on Monday. They've scaled it towards us. Trying to figure out exactly when that is. We're probably looking at about late morning local time now. So it has gone from evening to morning. So the time to prepare for this storm has just shrunk by 12 hours just now.
I think they've also
Wow.
shifted the forecast ever so slightly eastward as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yep,
yet.
they
We
have.
don't have the graphic.
Okay, so yeah, the latest Category 2 point is actually just onshore, the 100 mile per hour one. So they're at least be forecasting it around noon central for landfall.
Interesting. Aren't you still looking at the last cone now?
Yeah, I've got it up on my phone. I have a. Funny enough, I'm using the Weather Channel's application because they have the cone on there.
Blimey. So there we have it. Interesting if they're projecting it further east.
Something I just noticed, their 12-hour forecast point is actually northwest of what the storm is right now.
Northwest. What's his
Yeah.
movement direction?
I can check on the latest advisory. That they look to be northwest at 4 knots. I believe that's 5 miles per hour. So yeah, same movement. It hasn't changed.
Scoom says, what are the wind gusts of Agatha right now?
I can get that up as well. Wind gusts are gusting to 70 miles per hour right now.
And one of our members did a poll just before, 106 votes. 45% of you, majority, think that Agatha will be a Category 2 at landfall. That's certainly what's being forecasted right now. Let's see if we've got the new graphic yet. Not yet on my
We've got
end.
the discussion, Nathan.
Sorry?
We've got the discussion here. They are saying regarding the interesting center wobble that we've been having over the past 12 to 24 hours. The center of Agatha has been wobbling around for much of the day today. but the general motion has been north-northwest at 5 miles per hour. A continued slow and erratic northwest or north motion is likely through tonight, followed by a more steady northeastward motion on Sunday as the storm becomes embedded in the flow between a ridge to the east and a trough to its northwest. This slightly faster northeastward motion to take Agatha to the coast of southern Mexico by late Monday. Overall, the models have trended eastward, and the official forecast has been nudged in that direction.
Got it.
All of the large-scale environmental factors, such as wind shear, moisture, ocean sea surface temperatures, and heat content, are expected to be close to ideal for Agatha until it reaches the coast. Accordingly, several of the rapid intensification indices in the ship's model are higher than 70%. Due to these factors and probabilistic guidance, the NHC intensity forecast remains at the high end of the models and shows rapid intensification in the short term.
Right, so that's why they're doing it.
Rapid weakening is forecast after the storm makes landfall, and although the storm is expected to dissipate over the rugged terrain of southern Mexico, the remnants are likely to move over the southwestern Gulf.
There it is.
And the Yucatan Peninsula around the middle of next week.
Oh, Ethan, the new cone is out, and you got to see this.
Oh no, what does it have?
Well, a few things. First of all, like I said, the landfall has been brought forward substantially. It's now expecting landfall early morning on Monday, local time, about 7 a.m. No, that's local time there, isn't it? Sorry, 1 p.m. Pardon me. So that's early afternoon. Still, it's been brought back by a good 8 hours. But the depression point at 1 p.m. Tuesday is almost in the Gulf of Mexico. So everyone's going to be very excited about that.
Not sure if I would agree with that.
I would. Wind field has expanded quite a bit, and they expect it to be a hurricane by 12 hours.
I think that's pretty reasonable. That's very good.
I would agree.
But I can see that those watches and warnings have been changed a little bit, and good to see that they've actually extended that hurricane watch eastward, I think.
Yeah.
And they've upgraded a portion of it to a warning as well. Because I've always been thinking, ever since that they issued those hurricane watches, you can see on my image here, Nathan. This is the cone before, obviously. But the hurricane watch didn't cover the entire forecast cone, and was quite a peculiar situation. And good to see that they've extended those eastward, of course.
So just to reiterate once more, the changes with the advisory, and another chance for people to laugh at my pronunciations. A hurricane warning has been issued from Salina Cruz to Laguna de Chacahua. A tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch from Salina Cruz to Barra de Tonala, and a tropical storm warning from Barra de Tonala to Boca de Chiapan, and from Laguna de Chacahua to Punta Maldonado. Let's see if they've got information about storm surge, because we were talking about that earlier. No, they're still not giving numbers. As for rainfall, they're expecting 10 to 16 inches in Oaxaca, with isolated maximums of 20. Nice screen there, Ethan. We have got in Chiapas 5 to 10 inches with isolated maximums of 15. Life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides may occur in both regions. Eastern portions of the Mexican state of Guerrero 2 to 6 inches with isolated maximums of 10. Veracruz and Tabasco 2 to 4 inches, that's on the Atlantic side, with isolated maximums of 6 inches possible. But in the worst affected areas, it will be up to 20 inches of rain.
Right. I've got on my screen now, Nathan. Interestingly, my software has glitched out on my end. It's got the updated outline of the cone, but the actual forecast points are the old ones.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. We'll turn this off here. Let me just figure this out here. Right, there we go. So I'm gonna keep the storm's position outlined here because I just want to outline just how much rainfall we're gonna be seeing from this. Just in these coastal areas here, in the green outlined areas, this is 14 inches or more of rainfall. This model only goes up to 14 inches. But if I had to guess, we'll probably
I got to
see
correct
more
you
than that.
there. It's not just it's the color palette that only goes up to 14 inches. I've edited mine, and I'll be able to show more when I show it later.
Okay.
But for
Interestingly,
the interests of everyone watching, I mean, we don't really need to know if it's above 14 inches. That's a lot.
yeah. But yeah, that's some significant rainfall, and you can see here outlined in the white areas, that's over 2 inches of rain. While 2 inches might not seem like a lot to like the general minded person, that's actually quite a lot of rain, actually. And this is some pretty mountainous areas here in Mexico, and that's going to lead to a lot of flash flooding issues. And you can see here, I don't know if this is over the Bay of Campeche. I can
It
turn
is.
this off here. Okay, good. I was about to say. But yeah, we can extend it out towards the 7-day period. Let me just go out
Uh-oh.
to the 7-day period. There we go. There's our 7-day period. Wow. So you can see this Central American gyre here, while not exactly associated with Agatha itself, going to be dropping a lot of heavy rainfall here. All the areas outlined in the red here are 6 or more inches of rain. So a large part of Central America and Mexico going to be at risk for heavy rainfall from this, even though they might not get, say, direct effects from Agatha. They could get indirect ones as well, and it's associated a system that might develop afterwards.
We've had some more questions. First of all, are we doing landfall coverage? I think that's pretty much a given at this point, whenever that happens. Can the storm appear an eye? I think they meant to say, will it start to show an eye soon? I don't know if anyone has got any thoughts on that, and its inner structure.
Not really, as far as I'd say.
Yeah, no sign of it appearing yet. And to be honest, the convection at the centre looks pretty small for an eye, unless it's a pinhole. I might be a bit worried that might happen, because when I see this storm right now, you know what I'm thinking of? It's going a different direction, but I'm thinking of Hurricane Pauline in 1997, which pinholed and moved northwest. It's just the way it looks. I don't know. It's just conjecture on my part, but there we go. Christian, you've joined us now.
Yes, I have. Hello.
Welcome aboard.
I'm hearing rumors, Nathan, that they've put the mesoscale imagery over Agatha.
Oh, have they?
Yes, they have.
Right.
Yes, they have. Just now.
Lucky you.
Just popped up there in the frame. And what a storm. I mean, this is just a single image here, but what a nice storm. I mean, I know that whenever I was doing the storm update earlier this morning, we were witnessing a large outer band on the eastern side of the circulation that has since gone, disappeared. It's not there anymore. So I wonder if we're going to be seeing perhaps that rapid intensification phase sooner than what the NHC is forecasting. They look to be forecasting it to begin in pretty much now, right?
Well, they're betting
Well,
on
I
it.
mean, where's the ocean? What's it called? Ocean heat content.
There isn't any here.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's somewhere in the East Pacific, but it's not where the storm is right now.
Yeah, it's
If
to
you're
the
wondering,
southwest.
just in case anyone wanted to know sea surface temperature wise for this, it's under 38 degrees Celsius waters, and those go right up to the coast of where Agatha's going to forecast to make landfall. So those are not that much of an issue. Ocean heat content wise, how deep those waters go, I have no idea.
Not
Just
very.
give me a few. They don't go that deep? Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, no, not that deep.
Now,
There's one area of the Eastern Pacific that it goes pretty deep, but it is not where this system is.
here's a look at that cone again in case you missed it earlier. Another comment there, are La Nina conditions this year going to be stronger than last year?
I don't know.
Good question.
Mm.
I mean, to be fair, the La Nina is definitely there for the third year, but La Ninas in the third year are usually rather unpredictable. At this point, we've pretty much clarified that it's going to be a La Nina throughout the entire hurricane season. But of course, the last third year La Nina we had, that was 2012. And while that season was active in terms of named storms, it only did end up having 2 majors, and those were at Category 3 at peak. So, I mean, we're looking at activity. The question is just, how is this third year La Nina going to work? Because, of course, it's not 2012. We don't have the same, anomalies as 2012. It's definitely setting up to be another one of those wild, uncertain years. And it's kind of been the case of the last several years. I know we've kind of said this every single year. But to be fair, the 2020s have built a reputation of being a decade where you just don't know what's going to happen at this point.
Don't jinx the whole
This
decade,
is
man.
well. This is the what, third year in a row?
Third year. I mean, eventually we'll get an El Nino, just not going to be this year.
We had some more questions there. Would you say that Agatha is undergoing rapid intensification now? It has strengthened by 25 miles per hour since your last live stream yesterday.
Hard to say. I
Hard
would
to
say, I would say wait another 12 hours, and
At the moment, I would say no. Not yet.
Not yet. No.
it just doesn't really have that rapid intensification look to me. Although, I mean, well, we've seen war storms that have rapidly intensified before, so let's be honest.
What was I going to say just then? Gosh, it just completely left me. Something to do with the rapid intensification. Well, it's completely gone. There's some more questions though. Are there any medium significant cities on the coast of Oaxaca? There are. You start to the west, you've got the main places really are Preto Escondido, which is west of the cone. Then you've got what area is that? There's quite a lot of small localities that are big with tourists, and places like La Crucecita as well. That is pretty much in the line of fire. And then you've got Salina Cruz, which is where it kinks inwards, and also inland a little bit. Uxitan, I think it is. The actual town Oaxaca that the province is named after is well inland. And they probably won't get any tropical storm force winds, and they probably won't get very much rain. They're out west, so probably the main location, the biggest place that would get affected by this storm's rains, and maybe a little bit of wind, is Tuxtla Gutierrez, which is the largest city in Chiapas, and is also well inland, but it's going to be under this storm's influence. Another question there about how low could the pressure be at landfall?
For a low-end Category 2, I think we're probably looking at a pressure,
I'd probably say
hard to say.
I want to say around the 980 to 990 range, but I could be
No,
wrong.
it's going to be lower than that.
Well, you reckon?
We're probably looking at maybe the high 970s, probably. That'd be my guess.
All right.
Really? You don't think it'll be lower?
No, I don't. Because I don't think this will have much time to peak as a Category 2. I think it'll have maybe 12 hours at best to be a Cat 2.
We just did another poll now. Will Agatha reform in the Bay of Campeche after transiting Mexico?
Let me guess.
80% said yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
109 votes as well.
That's quite a lot of confidence there.
Yeah.
I voted no.
No,
Just for the
Yeah, I
record.
voted for no as well.
I see. So this is Force 13 Live. We're covering this storm right now, Agatha, the first named storm of the Pacific hurricane season. National Hurricane Center's advisory came out earlier, just a moment ago. If you missed it, they have issued hurricane warnings for the coast of Oaxaca in Mexico. They expect a 105 mile per hour landfall. That's 170 kilometers per hour. That's sustained winds. Hurricane warning in effect for Salina Cruz to Laguna de Chacahua. Hurricane watch for Salina Cruz eastward to Barra de Tonala. Tropical storm warning for Salina Cruz to Boca de Pijijiapan and Laguna de Chacahua westwards to Punta Maldonado. A hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area within 36 hours. Preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion, and they only had a hurricane watch earlier. And again, I do have concerns about how the track was pushed forward there. Not that it's wrong, but that it reduces the lead time for people ahead of the storm by about 8 hours as to what it was just an hour ago. So that's something for people to consider there. And when you look at that graphic already, it is probably safe to assume that, yeah, by 36 hours, that's the third hurricane point there. Tropical storm force winds will be reaching the coast. And indeed that they expect landfall in 48 hours, pretty much on the dot. Right now, it's got 60 mile per hour winds, a pressure of 998 millibars, and they are expecting up to 20 inches, or I think that's trying to figure that out. I think it's 500 millimeters of rain from this
Question
storm.
for you, Nathan.
Yes.
When do they forecast this to become a hurricane? At what time tomorrow?
Well, by the next forecast point, which is 6Z.
Of course, they forecasted to become a hurricane overnight. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, overnight. That's right.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I want to do graphics on the storm, but it keeps like upgrading itself overnight. It did that last night, and it's gonna do it overnight this night again.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you do an update late tonight before bed, then you may have already caught it.
No, I don't think I'll be on for a video update again tonight.
We'll need someone to do that.
Well, yeah, we'll need someone. Or it could be. Do you reckon it could be covered in the bulletin? Unlikely.
I mean, we do have our
But there's
tropical
always a
weather
chance.
bulletin.
Yeah. I mean, unlikely, but there still is a chance.
Let's go back to our satellite wall. Take a look at everything that's going on right now. And you can see 4 Mexico images and 2 floaters showing everything that's going on from all angles and enhancements regarding Tropical Storm Agatha.
One thing I've just noticed about the latest NHC forecast advisory, Nathan, they forecast that tropical storm conditions will begin on the coastline about 24 hours from now. That's earlier too.
What?
They forecast tropical storm conditions will begin on the coast in around 24 hours from now.
How?
Interesting.
Well, that's what they're saying in the latest key messages graphic. They say tropical storm conditions are expected in the tropical storm warning area on Monday, with tropical storm conditions beginning there Sunday night.
Latest key messages graphic shown here. We'll read that off as well. Hurricane conditions expected in the hurricane warning area in southern Mexico on Monday, with tropical storm conditions beginning there on Sunday night. That's 24 hours. Well, no, Sunday night local time pushes it at least to 30 hours.
Close enough.
But yeah, you know, tropical storm conditions expected in tropical storm warning area on Monday. Heavy rains, threat of potentially life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides. I think people in that area know that when storms come, it means big business with mudslides and flooding and all of that, and this is going to be another one of those. So they need to prepare for that.
I'm just curious how far east this was compared to its 2010 counterpart.
Oh no.
Not terribly. It's not like across the whole basin, but it's not terribly far. But Agatha's 2010 counterpart and its counterpart today that we're looking at today both moved very slowly. Not to say that we're going to be seeing the same impact of that 2010 version, but it's just interesting that all these preseason storms have a tendency to move very slowly.
And here is a look right now of a zoomed in view of the storm, and you may be able to make out a few lightning strikes that's occurring in the convection on the top right hand side already overland. So that's something that in some areas, some localized thunderstorms are already occurring overland. But in general, the big part of this storm has remained out to sea, just offshore, I should say.
Well, that's certainly good news. Let's hope that it stays that way.
It won't, because that main band is about to move overland very soon indeed. Let's go and see if we can try and get some infrared once again, and it's not as pretty, but you can see it there. Let's see if we can get the mesoscale at our end now as well. I'm guessing it's mesoscale on GOES 17.
Yes, it's
There
the
it is.
representative scale 2.
And sorry for the din in the background, I can't control that. Now we have this, you can see it's really starting to blow up. The quality is much better on that as well. And we're starting to get some more images being fed through on the rapid scan.
What I can say
look at that.
is the storm has just had a convective burst fire off.
Looking good
So
there.
certainly trying to intensify.
Yep, you can clearly see that. I can't wait to get this to load a few frames, because that will look pretty beastly, I'd imagine. There it is, blowing up. We'll get to see more of that in the next hour. We won't be taking a break. This is Force 13 Live. If you've got any comments or questions for us, particularly if your area is somewhere that we're looking at today, then send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and it will light up for us to pick up from the chat and address your questions. Well, now let's actually go and take a look at a full view of that webcam once again and see what's going on there right now. And you can see it's a bit pixely. This is really the only webcam that's available in the area, but it's certainly got a lot more overcast there, that's for sure, in the last few moments. And this is to do with the edge of the storm. If we turn the volume up a little bit, you'll still hear there's quite a lot of voices and quite a lot of people out there, I imagine carefree at this hotel, I think. But they are now, I think this area is under that hurricane warning, so...
Did just notice a question here, Nathan. Someone is asking, what implications will this have on the Cancun area? Headed there tomorrow. Not really much. Its precursor in the, what could become of it in the Atlantic could have some impacts in the Cozumel or Cancun area, I should say. But overall, from Agatha itself, I almost called it Andres. We're not really seeing much in the Cancun area. Shut up.
It's going to be a wet period for you. If you're much more simplistic view, maybe thinking that is it going to be sunshine or rain, I can tell you definitely it's going to be rain. Will there be severe conditions there, though? No. You'll probably get some heavier rain, the heaviest rain, on Friday, Saturday next weekend. But in terms of winds, it might get slightly gusty, but nothing out of the ordinary. As we continue to look at this webcam for a moment, and this is, I believe, near Santa Maria Huatuco on the coast, or Barra de whatever it was called, I've forgotten already. But that's there anyway. Somewhere along the coast, pretty much where the curve of the bottom of Mexico sticks out the most. An area that is under the hurricane warning. As we look back at that, and in fact that location is pretty much squarely within, near the center of that forecast cone, so they definitely need to be preparing and not relaxing if they are. Let's see if we have any more comments right now. Someone thought your shut up was pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that was Ethan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ethan. Does the AOI in the Atlantic have to do with Tropical Storm Agatha? Yes.
It partly yes, partly no.
Mainly, yes.
Mystical Irene says that I live in the Florida Keys. Should I be on alert?
I would monitor. I would, if you're in the southwestern part of Florida to maybe the southern part of Florida into the Keys, I would monitor Agatha just a little bit, but I wouldn't treat it as if it's going to come for you. You know, just monitor the situation and just see what develops.
Well, I must say, if you're living in the Florida Keys, I think every single Floridian that lives in the Keys should always be on alert this time of season, given the fact we are in the official hurricane season, effective in, 4 days now? So, I mean, we are getting to the time of year where Florida just needs to be watching out in general. So, I mean, we had the hurricane preparedness week that that was done at the beginning of May. I think it was the first week of May 1st to 7th. Either that was the second week, but either way, in the beginning of the month there was a little hurricane preparedness week, which pretty much went over everything that people needed to know when preparing for hurricanes, how to prepare, what they bring, all that stuff. So hopefully that was taken into consideration. I mean, we are expecting pretty much more of the same of what we've seen the last 2 years. So not as active 2020, of course, but something similar to last year is what everyone's been saying. So pretty much looking at that. Pacific, of course, Mexico, you're definitely going to be seeing landfalls. I mean, we're about to get one right now, so you definitely need to be on the lookout for that too. But same applies to Baja California. Pretty much you get the idea I'm trying to get here.
Sorry, I was talking on mute just then. Good job I spotted it early. I was just talking about its satellite appearance and what you thought of its appearance in the last few hours, and do we think that the intensification is properly underway?
Oh, it's got the classic shrimp look to it on satellite at this point. So, I mean, that's always step one of what you would typically see of a storm set to rapidly intensify. Once you have that shrimp-like structure, that means it's definitely looking healthy. It definitely looks pretty good on the satellite section. I haven't looked too much into, the IR or anything, so I'm doing that right now. As I'm saying this, looks pretty good. Still has a little bit of way to go before, full-on rapid intensification goes, but it's definitely in the progress of getting set up for what the National Hurricane Center's been anticipating.
Yeah, right now I'm just doing some analysis behind the scenes. It actually looks like that Agatha is dealing with a little bit of westerly wind shear right now, so that might be what's inhibiting it mainly. Let's hope that the wind shear stays with it. But once that northeastward turn begins, that shear is forecast to lessen a little bit. So I think once it makes that turn, we're going to be seeing a lot more intensification as that pushes out towards the northeast. And just looking at a satellite imagery loop, Nathan,
Yeah.
it does appear that just before this convective burst happened, that the center might have been a little bit exposed, actually. Of course, this new convective burst is covering it up, of course. But it looks to be moving very slowly, only 5 miles per hour movement.
Yeah, wind shear looks like it's going to be staying relatively low. It's when it crosses over to the Atlantic where it just pretty much becomes pretty high, around 20 to 30 knots at that point. So that's another thing that's going to be preventing it from doing much in the Atlantic for those who are still wondering about that. But yeah, before it even gets to landfall, I mean, we're talking about, what, 28 to 30 degrees Celsius temperatures. Yeah, they dropped some before landfall, but we're talking about 30 right now. Dropping slightly still keeps it pretty healthy. Relative humidity is also pretty much going to be stabilizing between 70 and 80 throughout the course of its life, too. So, still pretty healthy overall. Just a tiny bit of westerly shear is really not going to change the outcome of Agatha at all.
And if anyone was wondering about T-Coast right now, we're still code yellow, but we are 1 point off code orange.
So we are currently at how many points?
69.
69 points.
69 points.
Go ahead and say it, Christian.
No, I'm not. I am not.
Right, Jarland Devon says, when is the next update from the National Hurricane Centre? It's just happened. It came in early a while back, and of course we have to rehash this information sometimes for people who are just dropping in. The National Hurricane Centre say the storm has strengthened. They've issued hurricane warnings. The headline is that it's gradually strengthening off southern Mexico. And the hurricane and tropical storm warnings have been issued. Just another little look at that cone and the warnings again on the screen there. Hurricane warning for Salina Cruz to Laguna de Chacahua now. Hurricane watch for Salina Cruz eastward to Barra de Tonala. Tropical storm warning for Salina Cruz eastward to Boca de Pijijiapan. And Laguna de Chacahua westward to Punta Maldonado. I think I might be getting slightly better at that, but only slightly. Moving north-northwest at near 5 miles per hour. They're expecting it to turn northeast late tonight or Sunday. So there we have it. Back to our satellite wall there for another quick look. And now let's throw it back to our other graphics here. There we go. There's a real close look at the storm on the 1 minute mesoscale imagery. We still don't have a full loop yet, but we're getting closer. You can see that big convective burst. And every so often you might see those little vertical yellow lines. Those are lightning strikes that are being detected. A few of them inland there. People asking about joining the team. Well, it can't be processed whilst I'm on the air actively, but if anyone would like to help us in our future content and coverage and streams and videos and anything, send us a message, contact@force13.com, or through any of our social platforms, Facebook or Twitter usually. Search Force13 there, or join our Discord server and ask one of the top people in there for more details. There was also a question, sorry for asking a bit, but how is 92p? Good question.
Dead, I think.
Never was a thing. Not sure why it became a thing, but it's not going to become a thing. Never will be a thing, and it's a 0%.
Also, Xavier, did you hear what was interesting about 92p?
The fact that it never had a chance of forming.
No, the fact that it had a
It's meant to be 92S, wasn't it?
in the Southwest Indian Ocean.
Well, that's happened like quite a few times where they gotten the designation wrong. I remember putting an invest on one of the twos where I had to give it the wrong designation because they didn't change it; they just kept it as such.
I don't understand it.
So you're
It's
saying it should be 92S. I still haven't changed it.
yeah, it's still 92p, even though it's supposed to be 92s. Yes, they've done that several times this season. It's quite hilarious, but
Alright then, there we have it. I guess in a moment I'll start getting my models out and showing the rainfall estimates and all of that. But just in numbers, they're expecting 10 to 16 inches of rain in Oaxaca with isolated maximum amounts of 20. Life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides may occur. In Chiapas, 5 to 10 inches, isolated maximums of 15. Eastern parts of Guerrero, 2 to 6 inches with isolated maximums of 10. Veracruz and Tabasco, 2 to 4 inches with isolated maximums of 6. If you want to get wondering about the next updates from the National Hurricane Center, an intermediate advisory at 7 p.m. Central Time and a complete advisory at 10. And this update provided at 4 p.m. lists the storm at 13.8 north, 98.1 degrees west. That's 170 miles southwest of Prado Angel, and with 60 mile per hour winds, 998 millibar pressure, moving north-northwest at 5. So you can see on Ethan's screen once again how the cone leads into that yellow patch in the Gulf of Mexico, and how that one thing may lead to another. This sort of thing tends to happen quite a lot at this time of year, as recent years have shown, most notably in 2020. But in general, in the northern hemisphere, it's been overall somewhat subdued start so far. I know it's still pretty early, but when you think about it, we've only had this be the 6th tropical cyclone in the northern hemisphere so far this year.
yeah, it would be.
So yeah, we've not seen that much happen yet, but getting the impression there's going to be a big burst of activity somewhere along the line. Although I thought it was going to be now. I mean, it still sort of could be. We got this one, but I was thinking we'd see quite a few more around about this time. But,
Hey, I'm personally enjoying the quiet period.
Yeah, well, of course we're enjoying that.
Who doesn't enjoy the quiet period?
Now then, some comments. Agatha looks to be a bit dishevelled at the moment and further west than depicted. Thoughts on any implications this may cause? NHC don't
Further
appear to have
east.
been... Huh?
It's further east than what was originally forecasted, not west.
It is. So an
Actually, here's a
invalid
question,
there.
guys. Here's a question. What is the CDPS of Agatha right now?
5.
Low end stage 5 right now, Christian. I know that my video update earlier today did say stage 4. It's actually up to stage 5 now.
Okay.
Is
Rain
that
driven, if I remember.
devastating?
Yep, that stage 5 is devastating.
Because they have keywords that go with them, and
Yeah.
stage 5
again,
is pretty big.
Stage 5.
Stage
Stage
five
5 is devastating.
Especially for a Pacific storm.
Yeah. So we had stage 4 earlier on in Ethan's update. That was extensive. Now it's moved on to devastating, which is also the keyword for stage 6, but it's still stage 5 for the minute.
Alright, don't confuse
Oh.
people.
But yeah, no, it's currently a stage 5. Devastating damage is possible. Has the landfall zone moved on from your update then?
Oh yeah. Landfall zone was changed, I believe, for CDBS.
And of course, Ethan, you've got the that's the latest cone now, isn't it?
Yeah, the actual points have changed over, but the cone before has not changed.
Actually, we've just had an update from Devon regarding CDPS.
Oh, right.
Again, stage 5. So, what is it like?
I'll summarize. So
No,
basically,
no.
the CDPS is slightly higher. It's still stage 5, but the point value associated with it has slightly gone up. Of course, that is mainly because of the stronger landfall that the National Hurricane Center has gone with, rather than it being a Cat 1 landfall, it's now a Cat 2 landfall. But that's pretty much the only thing that's different with the CDPS. Otherwise, rainfall is still what's driving it. Winds are also driving it, and then of course, those are the two big factors of this. But we really can't stress the rain enough, because it is going to be a heavy rain producer thanks to the slow movement of Agatha.
Back on our screen again, and you can see more of that satellite loop with that big burst of convection on the southwestern side that's continuing actually as it moves along. We'll get this. We'll get a full loop of this soon when we get enough images to create the full loop. And looking back at that webcam over there, yeah, people chilling in the pool, people chilling on the beach. There's a hurricane warning in that location, so I would not recommend that. This is the only webcam I'm familiar with that's anywhere near the storm, so this is what we'll be looking at a lot, I think, over the next couple of days.
Already looks dull and dreary there already.
It does
Yeah, it
indeed,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, they're already getting the outer bands of the storm already.
That's pretty much what we're seeing there.
I'm surprised there's still people in the ocean, to be honest.
Surprising.
Yeah, like I said, that's tourism in a nutshell. But again, it's a hurricane warning in effect, guys. Get out of the water.
Well, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess in a moment it'll be time to take a look at some models at my end, which is always a fun time. Always a lot of fun. But if anyone's got any comments for us during this hour of coverage as Ethan's screen goes dark, let's instead take a look at our satellite wall once again, which will allow me to take the time to get the models up and running. So talk amongst yourselves for a moment whilst we look at this satellite wall, and you'll be able to see all that's going on there. I'm not going to load up silly range on this, so if anyone's asking, we're not looking at silly model ranges. Thank you very much.
Alrighty then.
I guess we can go to it as we watch it start to build in. There's that camera once again, but here we are. There's the initial GFS launch pad from 12Z. And you can see there that it's got, oh, that's a different frame. Beginning a rather disjointed, initializes the storm at 57 miles per hour, which is curious, with a rather broad wind field actually, especially to the northwestern side. And then it decides to, in fact, it executes a very tight loop there, I think, maybe, or in fact, yeah, it does. It does a bit of a loop and then becomes that hurricane, and there it goes. And landfall looks like it misses the southern tip there, and it just moves in a little bit further eastwards. So the GFS on that latest expectation, a landfall somewhere near Santiago Astata, which is sort of halfway between La Crucecita and Salina Cruz. And then what happens next on this 12Z GFS? Let's watch. So it moves inwards. You can't see much happening there. And then, well, we'll have to wait for the rest of the model to load to get the rest of that.
The suspense.
Yeah, quite suspenseful. It's just whilst we load all of these frames, it won't take long. as we get towards the second week. Oh, here we go. So you can see this starting to really throw itself out there towards Cuba. An area of interest there that becomes a tropical cyclone, partly to do, but really not very much to do with Agatha, to be honest, when you look at that. Becoming a tropical cyclone, possibly, and hitting Cuba there is strong TS if it manages to pull it off. And then out over the Bahamas and then off towards the rest of the Atlantic. Meanwhile, in that 10% area, or 20% area, I'm not seeing much at all happening there, at least on the GFS. And things are deciding to make noises there as well. So later on there in that run, off it goes, a large cyclone. Whether it's tropical or not remains to be seen. So that's an interesting look as to what's on offer over the next 10 days. Elsewhere in this region, really nothing else. So let's take a look at the precipitation estimates then. Let's go to 7 days out on the total precipitation, and here it is. You can see a lot of it there. Let's just wind back. Oh, sorry, we don't have the wind back. It's just one frame. I want to try and get all the frames loaded, so that might take a little while again. Especially when I keep pressing the wrong button. But you'll be able to see how that transpires and where those areas get the highest rain rates soon. Some more questions whilst we wait on that. Will there be storm surge reaching 7 to 11 feet and severe thunderstorms and a small tornado? What a very specific question. The National Hurricane Center haven't said those things particularly. They're not giving a number on storm surge just yet. And as far as I know, no severe thunderstorms. Is it possible that Agatha can make landfall as a category 2 or 2 and 3? There can only be one. Probably will be one of those. Which model do you think is most credible with this storm? Good question. Any thoughts?
I've pretty much stopped caving into the GFS as much this season because it's just not been a good model this year so far.
Right, let me tell you just one thing here about... I just need to say this, because I always show the GFS on here, on this WSV3, because it's the only one available.
Yeah.
So I'm not biased in favour of the GFS per se, it's just the only one that I can show. I just need to get that out of the way. But go ahead.
As of right now, it looks like the most realistic one out of what I've seen so far is probably a mix between the Canadian and the Icon model, which both take into the 980s and 970s, so pretty much a mix between the two, I guess, would be what Ethan's kind of been going for in terms of peak. That and both of them are indicating that slight weakening before landfall that we've been seeing from some of the models. Of course, H-Warp, don't use it. If you're wondering what they take it to 948 millibars, and that is about 6 hours before landfall. So you can see why that wouldn't exactly be something used. But yeah, I think at the current moment, Icon Canadian are probably the most consistent and probably the most accurate forecast for this storm.
I never thought I'd hear that.
I know, right?
Looking at this full model run, you can see the areas that are most impacted by the rain. There's an area there, 19 inches, maybe even 25, 30 inches. I don't think that's on the coast, but it's near the coast. And if you look towards the center of the storm, even crazier colors there. What number is it? 41 inches in the center of the storm, well out at sea. But overland, there's a few sporadic areas further up the coast as well where you're getting quite a lot of rainfall. But as it stands right now, 20 inches is very possible inland in the areas that will be impacted by the storm. 500 millimeters of rain. And possibly even more, and that could be further east, and that area I understand I think is even more vulnerable than further west. So this will produce dangerous amounts of rainfall, and it's not always how much, but it's how fast. Very quick bouts of rainfall, high amounts of rain rate in each individual storm band is what causes the flash flooding and mudslides and makes them worse usually. Let's now go back to our satellite wall as I get the mesoscale imagery back on the screen. And hopefully we'll be able to see a full loop of that now. Maybe, maybe not. As I get that loaded up. But you can see on the satellite wall right now everything that's going on there. And how the storm's structure has changed. Has it improved? I'd say, yeah, just a little bit. I'm now just fighting with the satellites.
Always a fun time to do that.
Yes, to try and get things loaded up. For some reason, it's deciding not to work. Yep.
Don't let the satellite defeat you. There might be thousands of kilometers up in the sky, but don't let them defeat you.
Well, it's not working. Oh, it is now. Pardon me.
Hooray!
As we switch back, what you'll see here is that you might notice that the storm's sort of fading away. That's just how it's going. That's normal because it's the daylight starting to fade a little bit on the storm. So it possibly might be appearing that it's getting a bit weaker, but it isn't really. And we can stick it on with IR-Viz sandwich imagery here too. And you can see just what the convection's doing, blowing up decently. So really not much is changing there. It's certainly not weakening, and in fact it might be strengthening slightly, but that might not be too apparent when you look at the visible on its own. When will Agatha reach hurricane intensity? The earliest it could do it would be at the next advisory. I don't think that will happen. The advisory after? Tempting to bet on that. But well, I don't want to say certainly, but likely by tomorrow morning or overnight. And another question there, do tropical cyclones strengthen more during the day?
I
don't
there's
know.
not really time doesn't really matter with it.
But they always tend to make landfall at night.
Oh yeah, last year I can definitely say that was definitely the case.
It's uncanny how that always seems to happen. I mean, people have been noticing that for years. Always seems to happen at night. Except a few. Of course, you've got big exceptions like Dorian and Think Michael.
I think Ida made landfall during the day last year, didn't it?
Yep. Ida was at
Yes.
the time landfall.
Yes, it was, yeah. Anyway, could Mississippi get hit? Well, let's slow down there. Slow down there. Unlikely just yet. Will Agatha become Alex in the North Atlantic? Not if it fails to die. Not if it fails to die. For those who are thinking it might get a double-barreled name if it survives in the Atlantic, that practice ended over 20 years ago. So, no.
How Grace last year did not get a double-barreled name when it crossed over.
Grace didn't cross over. It died.
I think we were just confused because we always refer to Amanda as Amanda Cristobal because...
You know what I mean. It died and then it...
Official analysis... I would just clear up the clarification because I might know why this might be the case.
Yes.
Sometimes we do clarify Amanda and Cristobal as Amanda Cristobal because our analysis, we have it as one storm.
So does ID Tracks, by the way.
Yes. Officials, however, they have it as two separate storms, and therefore That's why it's two different names, because it's two different storms. We
They
have it
it
as one.
as the same one, Xavier.
Oh,
They have it as the same one.
okay.
They
So
just have it.
operationally, it was not the case. Post analysis, it is the case. That's the only reason that it's the same. Normally, storms, if they lose their centers, they get a new. They just get a new name once they cross over. The only way that it keeps a name if it crosses over if it's the same center. Which
No,
would,
that's not really the case. It gets the same name if it maintains tropicality as it crosses over. But if it downgrades to a remnant low, or if it, as you says, loses its center, then it'll get a new name.
yeah, pretty much.
Which, of course, Amanda and Cristobal did that. And of course, it looks quite likely that this will do the exact same path.
And we continue to look at this storm right now. Feels to me like it's getting more beastly by the hour. And I do get the feeling that it's going to follow up on what the National Hurricane Center is forecasting right now. So just for the record, once again, go back to the National Hurricane Center's forecast and you'll see that they're expecting it to become a hurricane soon, overnight, possibly even earlier, and make landfall as a Category 2 in Oaxaca on Monday during the day, and then move inland and weaken, and possibly suggesting there that it may end up emerging over the Bay of Campeche as still a tropical cyclone, which certainly
Question
would be
for you,
interesting to
Nathan.
look at. Mm-hmm.
Is that 1 p.m. Monday local time point? Is that when they have it at 105 miles per hour, or is it the 1 p.m. Monday point?
It's the
So
1
what's the
a.m. one, yeah, the third point there.
Oh. NHC
no.
discussion says that it's going to intensify right up to landfall.
I'm pretty sure that, let's just check again, but I'm pretty sure, yeah. It's
So-
90 knots at the 1 a.m. point and 85 knots at the 1 p.m. point. And if they're saying intensifying to landfall, are they suggesting that it might get stronger than 90 knots?
Yeah, they absolutely are. My best guess is, in terms to like exactly how stronger, probably only 110 miles per hour. But you can never be too sure about that.
Well, he's still
But-
high-end Category 2.
I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch for this to become a major hurricane. Not going to lie.
Yeah. I'm
It
gonna
will.
say I'm gonna say it's not likely.
Yeah, of course
But
it'll
I
be a
don't
stretch.
think- I don't think that we've ever had a major hurricane landfall this early on in the season.
Oh, now you're testing us on our history, but I doubt it. I can find out for you. Take a little while to do the research. You'll have to talk about something.
Well, we've actually got something to talk about. There's been a new microwave pass.
Oh, right.
I don't know if anyone could pull it up on their screen. I don't know if Christian could.
Yeah, I'll have
But
to
it's in
find it
discussion.
first. I'm not. Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
Give me one moment here to bring it up.
Sure. I'm just
Well,
gonna
with this
check.
new microwave. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna check for this strong storm landfall.
Right,
I think that
here we
microwave
go.
pass is now up now. So yeah, you can see that it has gone really from having a solid core. I mean, it still has a core there, but it's not entirely sure what it's doing. It's got a
Okay, I did
weird split.
get some statistics. There's only been 2 hurricanes that made landfall in Mexico from the Pacific in May. The last one was Hurricane Barbara in 2013,
Hmm.
and the one previously was Agatha in 1971, which had 85 mile-an-hour winds.
Oh no.
And that had 85 mile-an-hour winds at landfall. So if it makes a Cat 2 landfall while still in the month of May, which is what it's forecasted to do, this would be the strongest May landfall that we've had in the Eastern Pacific.
Wow.
In Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah.
So I'm sure that there's been stronger landfalls elsewhere.
Where?
Probably in the other Central American countries.
No, I highly doubt that. I'm just checking the stats here. and this is actually pretty mind-boggling. There hasn't the earliest major hurricane landfall in Mexico is, where have you gone? I can see it here, but you'll struggle to believe. No, I'm not going to say. You're going to struggle to believe this when I find out what date it was.
Sometime in May.
Is it named at least?
Yeah. The earliest Category 3 landfall in Mexico was on August 27th.
What?
1989, when Kiko made landfall as a Category 3.
Another little interesting
Oh,
thing.
by the way, that's Pacific side of Mexico. Let me just qualify that.
And another thing to note, Barbara 2013 made landfall in Chiapas, which means that there has never been a tropical storm or stronger make landfall in Oaxaca in May.
And Oaxaca.
So this is a region that does not get storms in May. That much is for sure.
I was baffled when I was just looking up that stat then, but yeah, the earliest Pacific Mexican landfall, major hurricane landfall, was Kiko, August 27th. Unbelievable.
Even I'm baffled by that.
So that just goes to show how unlikely it is that this should get to major status based on climatology, at least. Christian, there we go.
Yep, sorry, just bugged out for a moment there as I tried to move the window.
All right, what do we think of that, guys? You're the experts.
Certainly reveals a half core to it.
Here we go, trying to play climatology for the umpteenth millionth time, I guess.
I'm not sure if I'm very impressed by that microwave pass. I mean, it's difficult to tell. More questions, or just one right now, I think. Oh, well, first, are my Discord DMs open? Always, to anyone. My block list is 0, and will always be 0. And people have said some great things to me in the past. Somehow it's still 0. What is the strongest May storm in the Eastern Pacific? Question there.
That's easy. Amanda, 2014.
And how strong was it?
I should not. I animated it, but 155 miles per hour. Not saying that this is going to get to that, but...
Oh, of course you're not saying that.
What, in May?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out to sea it was.
Yeah, the 3 Cat 4s that have happened have been, recently. Andre's 2015, that got up to Cat 3, and Amanda, of course, that we just mentioned, 2014, that was high-end Cat 4. Bud 2012, that was Cat 3. Alma 2002, that was Cat 3. Adolf 2001, that was also a Cat 4, and I know that was actually featured in one of the, mentioned in one of the recent one on this days, because it was about the form, I think Nathan, you know that you were about to mention.
I wasn't listening, I was just focusing on the next question, which you'll love.
Oh,
and
no.
I hate.
Oh no.
Falco Lombardi says, when will Hone form?
Yes.
It's the first Central Pacific name.
You see, it's been the first Central Pacific name since 2019, so we shall see.
How long's it been? Like 900 and something days? Xavier,
Very
you would
good
know the exact
question.
number.
It has now been 957 days.
Oh god.
Jesus. You're counting?
Why are you counting?
You're counting.
Because he's a child. It's what children do.
Oh,
I'm so
dear.
sorry. So sorry.
Crikey, man. That wasn't very nice.
Ouch.
Right. Let's try and steer us back on.
I do want to apologize about that. That just slipped out without me thinking.
Yeah, you are still on the air. Let's see. I think we're still on the air. Not been taken down yet. Another poll's just come out there. Are you under a tropical storm watch or warning? I imagine most people will say no. Raging Weather wants to know how we are today. I mean, we're all right. We're trying to do the best we can delivering this information over this 2-hour stream. I hope we've done a good job. Otherwise, we'd feel very sad if we haven't done our jobs very well. But this is why we're here for these events, and I imagine we'll be here a lot more tomorrow. The way it's going.
Oh, it's going.
Yeah, just looking at some. There's no more questions just now, but always a good time for those questions because we've talked through most of what we want to talk about with this storm right now as we cross back over to the close-up mesoscale imagery. Beautiful imagery. High resolution. And you can quite clearly make out why it's overcast at that webcam location, because it's right in the middle of that first band. Some of those bands producing lightning right now. You may be able to notice that on those small vertical flash things. Those are lightning strikes, which I think is really cool. Satellite derived, those are. And you'll see another satellite derived lightning product here on our satellite wall at the top right hand corner. Mainly looking out to sea there, but you can see all of those green flashing areas are lightning flashes. And you can see all of those other image views, water vapor particularly there in the middle, showing that there really isn't any dry air in its environment. And Ethan said earlier that we've discovered that there's some wind shear.
Yes, there is some westerly wind shear on the storm right now, but whenever it takes that northeast turn, that wind shear is forecast to lessen, which should allow for a slightly more rapid intensification phase. Brief, but that'll take it up to landfall.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty bad. I mean, when we're looking back at the historical stuff there, obviously we can, I mean, as a historian, I'm not ignorant to how there may have been, this may have happened before at some point, but certainly in the modern era with our modern issues, we won't have seen a storm this strong making landfall in this area if it follows the forecast. And that must be a big concern for those in the area of impact, when you also consider even the weak ones deliver massive amounts of rainfall and cause so much damage, like its namesake in 2010. But with the winds as well, over 100 miles per hour, this could be a memorable storm for the wrong reasons by the time we end up on Tuesday. Let's see what else we have right now. What do you think the MJO will affect? How do you think the MJO will affect the hurricane season? Anyone?
I mean, considering the fact that it's always shifting phases, it's kind of hard to, say how it's going to affect the hurricane season, because you can only predict out to a few weeks about where the MJO is going to lie. So, not really something that we can forecast. If it's favorable for the Atlantic, then of course that's going to be a giant problem for us. Ideally, we'd want it to, remain unfavorable, but obviously we know that we don't get anything that we want usually, so we'll just have to wait it out pretty much.
Hurricane Time Lapses alleges that the low-level circulation might be going southwest right now.
Might be evidence for that.
It's not moving very quickly, and we saw on the GFS that it could do a counterclockwise loop. It's not out of the question that that might happen, but personally I'm not seeing it yet. Would be fascinating if that did happen, and a nightmare to predict.
Well, the storm is already hard enough to forecast track-wise.
And just a small question there, what time zone is Agatha in? I'm pretty sure it's in Central Daylight Time. Do Mexico use Daylight Time?
Yes, they do.
Ah. When will your next Atlantic hurricane season prediction be? It's going to be on May 31st during our Countdown to Hurricane Season special on Force 13. Another question there, what do we think is more likely to happen out of the following? Agatha surviving and keeping its name in the Gulf of Mexico, or Agatha elongating too much and reforming as Alex?
Neither.
Neither. Go on then.
Too much uncertainty.
Well, that implies that you think something else is more possible, though.
Some part of me does, some part of me doesn't. Hard to say.
Okay.
Agatha dies at the end.
Well,
Well,
how many storms formed in the Pacific, landed as a hurricane, then crossed into the Gulf of Mexico and re-strengthened? Wow. What a question. I doubt
Very
it's going to be
specific.
many. I'll have a look for you, but I can't think of any.
I can assure you, 0 of them were in May.
0 in May.
yeah.
I'm just gonna have a look. I do like looking through the history stuff, but re-strengthened in the Gulf. It'll take me a while to figure this out, so don't wait on me.
Let's see what else I had.
Ooh. Oh.
Anyways, some other questions that we had, at least from what I am seeing, was pretty much why models seem to weaken it before landfall. Ethan, do you want to answer that one, since you've been looking at the models a lot with this?
What was the question again? Sorry.
Why did the models pretty much seem to weaken Agatha with before landfall?
Well, I know that Soham and I were having a conversation a few days ago that there might be some dry air that might slope down from the mountains, and that could get into the circulation and cause some issues. So maybe that might be something that we could be seeing. But it's probably honestly due to land interaction and just how slow this thing is moving.
Alright, I've got an answer to the question. How many storms formed in the Pacific, landed as a hurricane, then crossed into the Gulf of Mexico and re-strengthened? None. But one came close. One storm was a tropical storm at landfall, moved into the Gulf, and then re-strengthened to become a hurricane and hit Louisiana in 1923. October. That's the odd one out. Nothing else really comes close. So, good question. Maybe do some research there.
There is one thing that comes close.
Go on then. What is it?
That would be back in 2010. Got very
Hermine?
close. Yes, Hermine.
But it didn't
And
make
what
landfall as a hurricane.
No,
in
but it was a
Mexico.
tropical depression in the East Pacific.
But they're looking for a hurricane.
Oh, for God's sake!
Yeah.
I can try.
But there you go. That's your trivia question answered. When is the storm expected to start moving northeast?
Anytime, literally.
Right.
Could even do it now.
Indeed. And what do you think is a suitable analog for Agatha right now?
I mean, we did just explain how there's pretty much nothing like this in May, so...
We sort of did, really. Like I said earlier, in the early stages of this system, I was thinking about Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, with Barbara 2013, what you had was, I mean, it kind of did have that little sharp northeastward shift pretty much immediately. And the thing is, it made landfall in Chiapas, barely in Chiapas, but it was still there. And then, of course, the remnants of it did end up going into the Gulf of Mexico. But the thing that's different is that it turned north while it made landfall. This isn't turning north while it's making landfall. That ends making landfall in Oaxaca and as a hurricane, and possibly the strongest May landfall that we've seen in Mexico. So
First I was thinking about Barbara, and then I was thinking about nothing. And now, I guess, the closest thing to its track, never mind anything else, and its time of year, I think would be Beatrice in 2017.
Perhaps.
A tropical storm that made landfall in a similar area, moving northeastwards, and made landfall on June the 2nd, but was only a tropical storm. So, there we go. More questions here, I think. One of them's about Louisiana. Another one is about when will we do the 2022 hurricane season animation hypothetical. That's not my department. I want to send an email about that one. In any case, more imagery here. Visible mesoscale. You'll notice it's getting a little bit darker. That's because it is getting darker locally, with the sun starting to set or getting towards that. It may show you a false impression that the storm's getting weaker, maybe. But it is interesting to note there, Xavier. I do wonder. You look at those low clouds churning out, and you look at the convection. It's all moving west.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strike. I'm so confused about what this storm is doing, and it's not even in its rapid intensification phase yet. Like, all I know is it's wobbling, and that's like the best I can say for a direction. It's wobbling. Not sure whether it's moving in the west or northwest at this point, but it's wobbling.
Yeah, we surely know that. Once again, for those who haven't seen it, this is the track forecast for the storm over the next, till Tuesday. It's not a full 5-day cone there, for obvious reasons, because we think it'll die off, or the NHC think, or maybe they're just not committed to having it do anything more than that. But at the moment, they expect it to become a hurricane very soon, within the next 6 to 12 hours, and make landfall as a Category 2, where that hurricane warning is right now. Reiterate those warnings one more time for those who may have missed it. This came into effect about an hour ago. Hurricane warning now for Salina Cruz to Laguna de Chacagua. Hurricane watch for Salina Cruz eastward to Barra de Tonala. Tropical storm warning for Salina Cruz eastward to Boca de Pijijiapan. And Laguna de Chacagua westward to Punta Maldonado. And as stated earlier, 20 inches of rain possible from this storm, particularly in the eastern part of Oaxaca into Chiapas. And as you can see on that cone there, weakens to a depression on Tuesday, they're expecting, and could be scoped for entering the Atlantic through the Gulf of Mexico, and possibly maybe having a resurgence. But we won't know about that until we get closer. No other questions just now, but that's the latest we have. Let's see if we can take another look at that webcam and see what's going on there right now. Still quite murky there, and I expect they won't be seeing the sun again for quite a while, because this is the band's part of the storm. As far as I can tell, I know it's very grainy and pixely. You can hear quite a bit of noise. There's people in the pool there. There's a few people on the beach at least. Yes, there's people in the sea. This area is under a hurricane warning, so it's not the wisest thing to be doing right now. Let's just turn it up a little bit, see if we can hear anything. Quite a lot of birds chirping. There's a few people about. It's not hectic busy, but it is quite busy. So yeah, I'd recommend maybe that's not a good idea in a hurricane warning, as that location is in one. And the bands of the storm already starting to, the early bands, the fairly weak ones, moving over that vicinity right now. We've got 7 minutes to run until we wrap things up tonight, guys, so don't know if you guys wanted to talk some more about one of the topics we've covered tonight.
I don't know.
Well, they seem quite content with not talking about anything. We just did that poll earlier. Are you under a tropical storm watch or under a tropical watch or warning? 89% said no, 10% yes. So fingers crossed, we've done a service to you 10% out there. with regards tracking this storm. And of course, we'll hear a lot more tomorrow with more live coverage as the storm draws closer. If you do have any questions when we go off the air in a few moments, you can send us a message to our email, contact@force13.com. On Facebook or Twitter, Force13 is the handle, and you can join our Discord server, not just to contact us, but to chat in general with our storm trackers from around the world. Plenty of people in Mexico there as well. Discord.gg/Force13. I think the link is underneath this video as well. So plenty of places to stay up to date. Lots of people post stuff there, even when we're not on the air. Let's go back to the visible imagery one more time, and let's see if we can change it to the infrared now so that we can see what that's up to on the rapid scan. There it is. Decent amounts of convection blowing up still, although it does look to me that it is quite displaced to the west. It's being blown away to the west. I'm seeing the wind shear effect there quite clearly.
Wind shear starting to get a grasp on the storm.
So that becomes another variable as to how much it might impact this storm and whether it might struggle a little bit, but NHC seem really confident. What is exactly their reasoning again for their high confidence?
And how strong it's going to get?
Yeah, did they talk about the shear?
I don't think they did.
No, they said all the large-scale environmental factors between wind shear, moisture, sea surface temperatures, and heat contact are expected to be close to ideal for Agatha until it reaches the coast. Accordingly, several of the rapid intensification indices in the shift model are higher than 70%, and due to these factors and probabilistic guidance, the National Hurricane Center intensity forecast remains at the high end of models and shows rapid intensification occurring in the short term. And that is their reasoning.
So it sounds to me like they may not be fully factoring in this wind shear if it does continue to get a hold of this storm, but easily it could just bat the wind shear out in the next few hours and we might be seeing that hurricane. That's certainly what the National Hurricane Center is expecting, that it will reach that hurricane status overnight. Jesse says, do you think something can form quickly before the start of hurricane season in the Atlantic, I assume? No. Some people
allow me to give the reality check for you all. There's a good possibility. I'm going to break this to you lightly. There's a possibility that the preseason streak that we've had for the last 7 years, it might thankfully come to an end. And I'm pretty sure it's time for you to cope with that fact, because hurricane season is June 1st for a reason. It means the season's supposed to start on June 1st. So just because it doesn't start on June 1st doesn't mean you want to have a storm there before then.
I did wonder if we did get another preseason storm, whether NHC would go fully over to starting the season on May 15th. We know they start tropical weather outlooks now on May 15th there.
Oh, it's because the National Hurricane Center doesn't decide whether the season starts on May 15th. It's the World Meteorological Committee. World Meteorological Organization, yeah.
So you're saying if it was the National Hurricane Center's way, they'd have put it back to May 15th by now?
I mean, I'm not sure. I know there's a whole bunch of teams that are already there about trying to get the season pushed to May 15th. I just don't know what it comes down to in the end. I know it's the WMO who has the final say.
Well, at this point, we are going to say goodbye here, and we'll leave you with our satellite wall for a few minutes whilst our music plays out at the end of this stream. It was nice doing more commentary at the moment, but there is still a lot ahead of us because this could be getting real in the next 48 hours as this storm approaches the coast of Mexico. Could become a hurricane overnight. We'll be watching it closely. Tropical Weather Bulletin is coming up on our channel in 3 hours time-ish, 2 to 3 hours. I think Xavier's doing that tonight.
Yep.
And I think we'll have another storm update later on as well, maybe. I'm not sure, but regardless, there'll be another storm update early morning tomorrow, local time. from Force 13 HQ and our team. One of them is occupied by other matters right now. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll be on the air again quite a lot, I think, during the course of Sunday. So we'll be here. Subscribe to the channel for those updates, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Night.